Honey. I can do magic. He looked at her, eyes big, hands shaking. His knee still hurt. Andy had scraped his hand pretty bad too. He hadn't been able to stop his bike. He never seemed to be able to stop it on that hill. The brakes just weren't strong enough. Close your eyes. I can do magic. Her gentle touch warmed his chest, and somehow the lump in his throat was dissolved and replaced by molten honey. Honey spread through his limbs and down to his toes and into his fingertips. His green eyes shone a little brighter through his tears. The sun was setting behind her. There was a strange glow in the air, a strange fluttering glow. Fairies had sprinkled their dust on them. He could taste honey in the back of his throat. She giggled and stood up. Her dress was short and golden. She had a plaster on her knee. She had white flowers tucked in her hair. She was carrying a red basket. Her eyes were black. Her smile was fading. The sun disappeared behind the hill, and she turned towards the valley. He pressed his honey-filled hand onto his numbed knee and stood up, still shaking. Can you really do magic? She smiled at him and started skipping away down the road toward the village. He dutifully made his own way home, up the hill, towards the sunset, stopping again and again to look towards the village that was fading into dusk. He thought he could see her golden dress, but it was just a street lamp. She was too small to be seen. His father would beat him, he was certain of it. These were new shorts, and he had ripped them already. He licked his lips, somehow still tasting honey, as the last rays of sunlight faded away. Years later, he fell again. The man standing above him pushed his foot on his chest. Stay down, asshole. I can do magic. He jumped up, pushing the man against the wall, and punched his face until his hand felt like a bloody pulp. The arrest was made swiftly. He did not resist. During his time, he got himself into trouble again and again and again, never quite sure when to stop punching, never quite sure when to stop doing anything. He was 35 when he got out. The apartment he got was small and stank of vermin. He drank, was never quite sure when to stop. This little village had no room for him. He wanted bigger things, had to have them, like he had to have his drink. He saw floating faces every night, like whispered secrets, fingernails, a lost book. Honey. She found him when she was 47. He was an old man by all standards. Somehow, she was still the little girl who had given him honey. His eyes were grey now. They'd lost their green. He was sitting by the river down by the village, staring up at the hill he used to have to climb to get home and get dinner. She knew his story. They all did. They knew he had just never stopped. She sat next to him and told him that she could do magic. As the honey spread through his limbs, he stopped for the first time in years. Honey filled his heart, and he stopped.